Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and some of you may be looking at the title and wondering, what am I getting at here? How is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom unfairly hated? This is the highest reviewed game of the year for the Nintendo Switch. Last I checked, it is the best-selling game for the Nintendo Switch as well. This game has seen tons of praise. Yet here I am talking about how it's unfairly hated. What am I getting at here? Well, that is what we're talking about today. But before going forward, let me point out that we are aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers, so if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and enjoy the ride as we talk about Nintendo every day. So what I'm getting at here about Tears of the Kingdom being unfairly hated, it's from the Zelda fanbase. And I'm not trying to say that you can't be critical of a game. I'm critical of Tears of the Kingdom. There's absolutely things about it that could be better. But at the same time, I'm not going to fool myself and take this for granted. I think Tears of the Kingdom is probably the best game of the year for Nintendo Switch, and maybe just period. There is a debate right now because there is Baldur's Gate 3 that a lot of people have been playing and enjoying, and some people think that game is going to win Game of the Year over Tears of the Kingdom. And even over the years, some fans have argued that there are other games that have come out on Switch that they prefer. For example, Pikmin 4. There is a decent amount of people who have enjoyed Pikmin 4 more so than Tears of the Kingdom. Myself personally, Pikmin 4 is my second favorite game of the year, second only to Tears of the Kingdom. And I can understand why some may prefer Pikmin 4. I can understand why some might prefer Baldur's Gate 3. At the end of the day, these are opinions, and everyone's entitled to their own feelings on a game, their own subjective experience. But something I've noticed about the conversation surrounding Tears of the Kingdom, and it's continued throughout the year, is just this overall negativity on this game. I've seen a lot of people that would normally be very high on a Zelda game to just not really have much positive to say on this. It's always been lukewarm. And I'm also referring to what I see on social media. And I understand these could be vocal minorities, but there is this conversation. It's what I mostly see on my timeline or my feed. I don't see people continually praising Tears of the Kingdom. I see a lot more negativity about this game as opposed to positivity. And that's where I'm starting to wonder is if this is fair. Because Tears of the Kingdom is such a great game. It has its issues, and we will address some of those issues in this video. But do those issues outweigh all the good in this game? In my opinion, by no stretch of the imagination. There are so many things that have been done incredibly well in Tears of the Kingdom that when I compare how great it is, compared to the small issues it does have, compared to the amount of negativity I see on the game versus the amount of positivity I see on the game, it seems unfair. It seems like there's an unfair amount of hatred for this game. So why is that? Well, I think in part, it's not too different from how all other Zelda games are handled. So, at least with the mainline major ones that release on home consoles, whenever we get a brand new Legend of Zelda game, the conversation tends to be, at first, very first, reviews are stellar, fans are excited, we jump into it, it's a magical experience, and then soon after, there's the negativity, there's the criticisms, there's the, this didn't meet up to my expectations, and this is how they should have done things differently, and I really wish they go in a different direction with the next Zelda. A lot of those talking points tend to be recurring for every single major Zelda that comes out. When Wind Waker came out, there was already negativity going to that release because of the art style, but a lot of people felt that those opinions were validated when they played the game. They hated the art style even more so. They felt the game was too easy, the game was too short. And what's funny about this is that now, Wind Waker is praised by so many of the Zelda fanbase. It has aged incredibly well, maybe having aged better than any other Zelda game. But it tends to be a cycle, because with Twilight Princess, it came with this promise of making good on what a lot of Zelda fans were looking to see with the Wind Waker and didn't get. It was a more realistic looking Zelda game with more scope and ambition, and it had like this Lord of the Rings like inspiration and a lot of really cool boss designs and fights and things like this going on. And then when we finally play the game, for a lot of us we enjoyed it, but after the fact, there are people saying, I I kind of would have preferred something more like the Wind Waker, something more open. Or still the difficulty wasn't right, or they just didn't like the overall pace of the game. The way the Wind Waker was, it was just so much better paced than Twilight Princess. So then Twilight Princess started to see some hate. But as time went on, a lot of people started to remember Twilight Princess more fondly and just how cool of an adventure it was. And so when I look at this situation with Tears of the Kingdom, I'm starting to get the sense that something similar is happening. A lot of people were very excited for Tears of the Kingdom going in. There is this promise that it would be a bigger, grander adventure than Breath of the Wild. Building off of it, having better boss designs, more unique style dungeons, a better told story, more to do. And then the game came out, and I would say it made good on a lot of those things. There is far more to do in Tears of the Kingdom than there is in Breath of the Wild. There's the sky, there's the underground, there's the surface of all the caves and additional side quests and such. It's a bigger game. The dungeons have a more unique theming, the boss fights are inspired and unique. And the story is told from several different perspectives. And it's not just a story that's all in the past, there's a lot of things happening in the present as well. There's more of a relationship built up between Link and Ganondorf. It leads to this final epic battle at the end that, in my opinion, is one of the best final boss fights we've ever seen in a Zelda game, which is a massive improvement over what we saw in Breath of the Wild. And just the overall cutscenes in this game are clearly a step up over what we saw in Breath of the Wild. The acting was a lot more natural, there were more emotional moments, there were more characters that we could grow fond of. So Tears of the Kingdom improved over Breath of the Wild in a lot of ways, and incorporated a lot of new mechanics that helped it to feel fresh. But yet, despite those improvements, there's a big part of the Zelda fanbase that is not satisfied, that is holding Tears of the Kingdom to an even greater standard. Despite the many advancements that we see with the story, many Zelda fans don't like how the story was told in Tears of the Kingdom. They feel that there's a number of plot holes, or there wasn't enough connections to the prior game, Breath of the Wild. I could go into every single reason why I think some plot holes aren't really truly plot holes, and why other criticisms could be not as justified as others, but the point is there are a lot of people who feel this way. And I'm not trying to say those opinions aren't justified. I think with a series that we love so much, and we believe it to be the best there is, we hold it to that expectation. And specifically on the story, going into Tears of the Kingdom, I expect the story to be better. And as I've already described, I think it is. But there are issues. The way they handle the imprisoning war, the way it was retold several times, the way there are characters in the world that don't seem to acknowledge all the progression points you've had with the story already, these elements can take away from the immersion. They do impact the overall experience. And I think some of this has to do with the fact that they tried to go a little bit bigger. There are more characters, there are more things going on with the story. It is being told from different perspectives. You have the flashbacks, but you also have the progression of Link's adventure with the dungeons and such. Then there are also the side adventures that play a role in what's going on with Zelda as well. So with all these different moving parts, there's more opportunity to have errors or issues. And we've seen some of that, and that translates to a lot of Zelda fans complaining about that on social media. But then also, Tears of the Kingdom is a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, taking place in the same world. And because of this, a lot of fans were hoping for something that felt like an entirely fresh, brand new experience. But while there were a lot of changes to this version of Hyrule, still a lot of people feel that it's not as fresh and new as they would have liked, like we've gone with prior Zelda games. So perhaps the adventure wasn't as exciting as some were hoping. And this is something I agree with. I want the next Zelda game to take place in an entirely different world. I think it facilitates that better sense of discovery and adventure. When I kind of know what I'm exploring already, at least when it comes to the surface, there is something lost. I don't feel as compelled to climb to the very top of every single mountain in Hyrule this time around, because I already did it in Breath of the Wild and I know what's there. And unlike Breath of the Wild, where I'd be exploring and all of a sudden I run into a giant dragon hiding around a mountain, or a series of Zoras trying to call me over for help, that leads to the best bromance in Zelda history. But while we may not have that same level of surprise because this world isn't entirely new, the level of interaction we have with all new abilities and the Zonai devices, and how we can use this to interact and move about the world throughout the skies, the surface, and the depths, and how there are far more characters to interact with in this game versus the prior one, and what you can do in the world involving these giant skirmishes and bringing in others to help you, and the improved variety of bosses and dungeons. There's a lot to enjoy here. Whenever I jump into Tears of the Kingdom, I still find myself having fun. Very much in the way I still find myself having fun whenever I jump into Breath of the Wild. These games I think as time goes on, will age well. Before Tears of the Kingdom came out, I was unsure about how I felt about Breath of the Wild in terms of being my favorite game ever. But as I did one final adventure through the game in the lead up to release for Tears of the Kingdom, I came to the conclusion that Breath of the Wild was my current favorite game ever. And for now, I'll still say that. But 4 or 5 years from now, I may come back around to Tears of the Kingdom, and while there were things that I would have wanted to be better, there still are a lot of amazing things about it. And once I start to look at Tears of the Kingdom for what it is versus what I wanted it to be, I may find myself appreciating it more years down the road. So ultimately what I'm trying to say here is that I'm not really any different from all the other Zelda fans right now complaining about Tears of the Kingdom. There are things about it that I wish were better or different. But that's because I had a certain expectation, a high expectation, as I do for every single Zelda game. But over time, not only myself, but I think others as well will come around to appreciating Tears of the Kingdom more for what it is than what we thought it should be. Because this is the typical Zelda cycle. And I guess my only real main concern, because it isn't like there isn't a great deal of people who do appreciate Tears of the Kingdom, is just that, in general, people tend to talk more about the negative things than the positive things. It may create this false image that Tears of the Kingdom isn't as appreciated as it can be via social media, and perhaps this may play a role in what happens to Tears of the Kingdom at the Game Awards, for example. Maybe it doesn't win Game of the Year. Is that the end of the world? No. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't change the fact that Tears of the Kingdom is a fantastic game. And it will go down in history as one of the greatest Zelda games ever. Regardless of how some people may feel about it now, many are still going to appreciate it for years to come. But those are my thoughts on the matter. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.